Welcome to Medical Edge. I'm Lisa Wilson. This program is produced as a partnership between the Mayo Clinic and the City of Thornton. We hope every episode provides valuable health information for you and your family.
Welcome to Brainerd International Raceway.
We're good. I started racing when I was like 15 years old. You know, I had a race car before I was able to drive it. So I won my first championship in 1975. Just about everything we ever raced, we won championships in and set track records.
This is a huge day for professional race car driver Tommy Archer. He's back behind the wheel after a 3-year detour, one that had him wondering if he'd ever find his way back to the track, or perhaps had even come to the end of the road.
I first saw Mr. Archer back in 2012 when he was first diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer.
Actually, I never felt anything from the beginning. It was basically just a blood test that they took, and they saw elevated PSA count,
which stands for prostate-specific antigen, which is a protein that's actually secreted into the blood system by the prostate, and it can be abnormally elevated for numerous reasons.
One of those reasons is the body's response to cancer in the prostate, which is a small male gland positioned beneath the bladder. It's a diagnosis 1 in 7 men will hear in their lifetimes, often tipped off as Tommy was, when rising PSA levels are found in a blood test.
We thought it was contained inside the prostate, but it actually had spread.
He had 2 malignancies. He had 2 different types of prostate cancer. He had a very aggressive type that formed a large mass and extended outside the prostate, involved surrounding structures.
Mayo Clinic urologic oncology surgeon Dr. Igor Frank removed Tommy's 2 cancerous tumors in a robotically assisted, minimally invasive procedure.
He had good response to therapy initially, but eventually his PSA started to elevate.
Which meant Tommy's cancer wasn't completely gone and still posed a serious threat.
But for me, as a person, not knowing what's going on, every night you go to bed, you're thinking there's a Pac-Man inside you, but you don't know where. But he's going to get me if we don't get him first.
So he's put on hormone therapy and a number of other medications to basically try to control his prostate cancer.
Urologic surgeon and cancer researcher Dr. Eugene Kwan says while hormones do suppress the testosterone that drives prostate cancer growth, men often hate the side effects, like weight gain and a risk for brittle bones.
You have lethargy, malaise, sometimes you have depression.
Just the fact that if I took the medicine for depression, I couldn't drive a race car.
So, after nearly 2 years, Tommy Archer, the race car driver, wanted his life back. He and his team of Mayo Clinic doctors agreed to take a chance and bring his cancer out of hiding.
To make a long story short, we elected to go ahead and take Mr. Archer off of his medications.
Within a month, Tommy's PSA levels were on the rise again, which meant his cancer was growing once again.
And Dr. Kwan said to me, he says, "We've now let the beast out of the cage. We got to figure out where he's at."
To do that, they turned to an FDA-approved technology Mayo Clinic helped to develop and refine, the use of C11 choline as a radioactive marker for cancer cells. Because this dye has a half-life of less than 30 minutes, it has to be manufactured right on site.
We have the only C11 choline PET scanner that's approved in Western Hemisphere. C11 choline is an isotope that has been attached to a molecule called choline.
Choline is a natural nutrient present in all mammal cells, but some, like kidney, liver, and spleen cells, carry much higher concentrations. So do cancer cells.
And so they put me in the MRI tube, they put the solution in me, and the next day they showed me the screen and there was a bright red dot.
Bright as a light bulb.
So sure enough, we see a very small bright spot in the pelvis. It's picking up the choline.
With Tommy's remaining cancer no longer invisible, urologic oncology surgeon Dr. Jeffrey Carnes was able to remove the last stubborn tumor.
And since that operation, Mr. Archer has had a PSA that's dropped to 0. And basically, at least at this point in time, we would regard him as being free of disease and potentially cured.
This guy saved my life.
Although he didn't treat Tommy directly, Chair of the Mayo Clinic Urology Department, Dr. Brad Leibovich, a part-time race car driver himself, even turned out to cheer Tommy on.
I've been a fan of his for decades.
I thought it'd be nice if he had some of the Mayo family up here to support him for his comeback. The driver, number 54, C3 Control Chevrolet Camaro, is Tommy Archer.
Quite a comeback indeed. With the fastest qualifying time, Tommy won the pole position and ended up on the podium with a second-place finish.
It is Tommy Archer!
Some of the crew members, they left their dark glasses on because they were crying. I wasn't sure that I could ever race again, but it was really cool inside to feel how good it was to be back.
For the Mayo Clinic News Network, I'm Dennis Doda.
We were inside of a big tank on wheels, releasing a bearing off of a shaft.
A few months ago, farmer Randy Turkelson was doing a little repair work at his son's metal shop.
A piece of shrapnel came off the bearing race, went in my wrist here and nicking a vein, so then we had blood coming out.
Had he not been able to control that bleeding, it could have been, spiraled downward pretty quickly.
Crawl out of the equipment and get on the ground, and then it was dripping on the floor pretty good.
And they said, that's bleeding pretty bad, and it started bleeding again. So Dad said, go get my tourniquet out of the truck.
Who keeps a personal tourniquet on hand? Well, those whose daughters happen to give them as Father's Day gifts and say,
Dad, take this in case you ever need it. Well, she knows my past history, so she was pretty sure I'd get to use it sometime.
This is identical to the one that my dad used.
You see, Maria Floor is a nurse at the Mayo Clinic Health System Clinic in Springfield, Minnesota. She also happens to be the facility's trauma coordinator.
That story is so poignant. It's just so amazing. In fact, Maria is a real special person.
Dr. Donald Jenkins is director of Mayo Clinic's Level 1 Trauma Center. When he spoke about controlling bleeding at a training session, Maria took it to heart.
So one of the comments that Dr. Jenkins made was,
I believe there should be a tourniquet in every combine, just as there is in every ambulance.
Which really was like an aha moment for me, because my dad and my brother farm.
Maria now plans to take the message even further to the tens of thousands of attendees at farm shows.
So now when we go back to Farm Fest in August, we can say, we've done this, we've proved this, and here's the guy that can tell you about it,
I think every industrial plant ought to have tourniquets.
Dr. Jenkins says tourniquets should always be kept readily accessible.
We're going to turn this windlass until the bleeding stops and we feel that there's no pulse.
And he recommends this high-quality design, the kind stocked in emergency department trauma rooms.
Still in pretty good shape, so it's back in the truck again.
A Father's Day gift that keeps on giving.
Good things to have when you need them.
For the Mayo Clinic News Network, I'm Dennis Doda.
That's all for this edition of Medical Edge. To learn more about the stories featured on this program, you can find additional resources by visiting our website and following the link to the Mayo Clinic. Thanks for watching, and be sure to watch the next episode of Medical Edge.